So we're gonna try this again. It's gonna be just me this time. Kind of want to move that camera up. All right. This fucking show right here is extremely amateur. And that's okay, because this is all kind of new for me, and it is a work in progress. I think we got the fucking sound pretty good. Besides, I have to run this propane heater, and it hisses like a bitch. You can hear it when I talk. You can slightly hear it in the background when I'm not talking, but I can't really do anything about that. If this place was fucking heated up, or if it was a decent temperature in here, it would sound great. The video kind of sucks. It's a great camera, but it's just not connected to the computer right. So deal with that too. And do one more little thing here. Get rid of these lines. There we go. Beautiful. Bam. You see I'm wearing these Hunter S. Thompson type glasses. I'm not trying to be cool. I just think they're, you can see really, the world just looks fun through them. And we were talking about glasses themselves. And I was trying to Google this, but I just can't figure out a way to word it, to Google it. But I've tried to look up, how do sunglasses affect your outlook on the world, or your like psychology, or your sentiment on the world? Because it's like a window separating you from the outside world. And I've always thought, because I wear sunglasses all the time, and when I take them off, things just seem more vivid. Especially if I'm wearing polarized sunglasses. If I take them off, everything seems more vivid. I don't know if anybody else has experienced that or even tried to question it, but I think it's there's probably something that happens in your mind. Like if you're looking out of a window and you see people playing or enjoying their lives while you're depressed, is it kind of the same thing as looking outside of glasses? It kind of separates you from the world. I don't know if that's real. Someone should do a study. I'm not going to do it because I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. Studies, they're important. They're also really fucking difficult. No shots here. This is wine because I ran out of whiskey, and all I have is gin, and I really don't drink that straight. But where there's a will, I'm sure there will be a way. So we were doing a live podcast earlier. Ben was here, and it just did not go well. Started out really good. We had some technical problems with sound, like always. And I'm gonna pause this recording real quick just to check and make sure it is working. Okay, well, I don't know for sure if it is working, but at least I am recording the sound onto an external device, so if it comes through silent, then at least I have that fucking shit. But no, man, it was a shit show earlier. Ben had to pee. That wasn't a shit show. Like, people gotta pee. That's fine. Next time he's not gonna chug an energy drink right before he gets in here. And the next thing that happened was, so I guess we kind of started this late, and he was supposed to be getting picked up. But, you know, in the middle of going to pee, you got a phone call. That phone call lasted like 10 minutes and a little more. And then his person came to pick him up, and then I was just like, you know what, we'll just do this another time. And I don't know, man. I want to just have a solid 1 hour conversation with nobody's phones around. And I don't think it's too much to ask, but it definitely gets tough, especially in this day and age. And I was on my phone a little bit, obviously, too, but I don't pick it up and make phone calls and stuff, so I hope that, you know, we're not comparing apples to apples. We're comparing apples to oranges at that point. But I had a few things that I thought of this week, and I'm going to try to elaborate on them. This is probably going to be I don't know what this is going to be, but maybe some people will watch it. You never know. I could say some funny shit. A lot of these things were based on, you know, bouncing ideas back and forth. So I guess I'm going to have to bounce them back and forth with myself. I should be pretty good at that. I talk to myself sometimes. But I do want to say that starting a podcast is really easy. You don't need all this stuff. You could just use a phone. You can use anything. And if you have the urge to start one, to just like get stuff off your chest, I highly recommend it, because it's a pretty cathartic thing to do. You are putting your thoughts out there, you know, for the entire world to tackle or shit on or whatever, and it's a freeing experience, I think. When you put yourself out there, you say what you want, you just kind of be yourself and see what happens. Even though, you know, not a lot of people are going to listen to this, but I'm talking in a way that I either don't care if anybody watches, or I don't care if 1 million people watch. There's nothing I'm going to say that I'm going to want to take back or anything. Now, there's some deep darks out there that, you know, that people probably don't want to mention. That's fine. But if, like, you have, like, just a dark or just a deep, like, put that shit out there. Just be yourself. It's really fun to be open, honest, and just be yourself. And especially in the age of the internet, where you could just put that out there and people that don't know you can listen to that stuff. And a lot of times, like, people they listen to you and they're like, shit, there's that frequency that is in my head, and it feels like, you know, this certain thing that someone talked about is on that same frequency that I didn't know anybody else could tune into. And I've had that before too. And then I've listened to a lot of podcasts with people, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, I think like that a lot too. You know, I do this one thing. So one of my favorite people is Theo Von. Part of it is because he's from Louisiana, like I am. Part of it is just because he's just Theo Von. I mean, you can try to put him in some kind of camp, or to say that he sounds like such and such, but you'd probably be wrong, because he sounds like himself. And I don't know where he gets his ideas from. I know one of the things, he definitely makes up a lot of shit, but nobody calls him out on him, because he's so creative with those stories that people just want to see where they go, and they end up being really funny. But I like him because he's just an odd guy that's fucking hilarious. And he's, you know, besides his love life, he's totally out there with everything. He's talking about being an AA, sex addict, and all this stuff. And he does it in a very lighthearted way, which I appreciate. And he does this thing that I do, that I've always done, but I didn't know a lot of other people, especially famous people, do, is combines words. And I think it's an affliction. My wife definitely thinks it's some sort of disease, where you combine words and all, like, yo, you want some sweet potatoes tonight? You mean them I can't even think of one right. I'm stumped. Sweet potatoes. Suedos. Something like that. Or like you want that like Nola's food. Nola's food's easy because it's a lot of shit. It's like you want that grapefruit, pear, quinoa, that I'm stumping myself. This is not a good example. Jesus Christ. I used to do it a lot with juices, like Ocean Spray. They always have those mixed flavors, so I used to do a lot with like the cranberry apple I call cranapple, and then like the apple raz would be, I don't even know if that's a flavor, but app raz, you know, shit like that. I do that all the time. I've done that since I was really young. My friend Ian would tell you that he would always chuckle when I would do it, but he's like, man, that's so fucking stupid. Stop doing that. I'm like, I can't help it. Maybe it is a disease. Shit. Well, it's a good disease to have, I think. Sometimes you come up with some gems. But yeah. Fuck. I'm just looking at our little stats here. They're pretty fucking... It's basically just a journal that I'm storing online. That's okay, though. And like I said, I'm doing this. It's out there for people to watch. Even if they don't watch, that's fine. Or listen to, you know. This is a podcast, so it's mostly probably going to be listened to. But I like the video element to it. I think it's fun. I'm going to open up a little fucking screen cap here. Let's see, screen, and then, yeah, okay. So I get on here. We're going to fade into that a little bit. And so yeah, I got some. These are just thoughts that I have. So this one right here: time versus experience wisdom. So there's these people out there in the world who it's mostly the older generations who haven't really done much, but they like to use their age as their wisdom like meter. So if you're older, you're going to be wiser. I don't think that's always true because a lot of old people are they never really did any thought experiments or evolved past their thinking on certain things. And I personally have a lot of life experience, but I'm not that old. I'm only 30. And I like to think that, you know, sometimes life experience itself in all these different situations puts you, a little bit higher on the wisdom meter than just age itself. And I don't know if anybody else agrees with that because, with age does come a lot of life experience, but if you're just doing the same thing day in and day out, like you're not going to get some kind of like nuanced life experiences and get wisdom from that. If you're just doing the same thing day in and day out, you're gonna just get bitter, I think. I think a lot of people do, and it's sad. So when, older people that haven't done much with their lives, take their wisdom, I suppose, with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to preach here either. You can do whatever the fuck you want. But so I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast recently with this guy Ash Dykes, and that frequency thing I was talking about, where you didn't know other people could tune into a certain frequency. I've always been inspired by crazy explorers, people exploring unexplored things, but the Earth is pretty well fucking explored at this point. Even the cold, desolate areas, and there's places you can go that maybe somebody hasn't been to, but let's face it, we got satellites and shit we can see. And there's no reason to go there because we know pretty much what's going on. And the cost benefit is like, there's no really fucking benefit to that. But so modern day explorers are a little different of a breed. So they're the kind of people that are just looking for an adventure, and they're more of they're mining their experiences not for world power or or riches or stuff like that. They're mining their adventure experience for, a little bit of life wisdom, a little bit of exposure to the world, putting yourself at the mercy of the world and other people, I suppose. Trying to find out who you are by putting yourself in these antiquated situations of being, just you and the world around you. There's a great quote from, it wasn't from, I heard it in the movie Into the Wild, but it wasn't from, it was an author's quote. And I'll try to find that because that's pretty good. See, Into the Wild. I'll find this real quick. I know what I'm searching for. And I'll read it. Because, Oh, it's a quote by John Krakauer, who, I guess he wrote the fucking book. Well, he wrote the book about Christmas Canlis. I don't know if it's actually from him, though. Okay, so the quote goes, "The sea's only gifts are harsh blows, and occasionally the chance to feel strong." Now, I don't know much about the sea, but I do know that that's the way it is here. And I also know how important it is in life, not necessarily to be strong, but to feel strong, to measure yourself at least once, to find yourself at least once in the most ancient of human conditions, facing the blind death stone alone, with nothing to help you but your hands and your own head. And I think that's a beautiful quote because what it's saying is like when you put yourself in these situations of, not necessarily life or death, but facing, facing the world with only, what you have at that moment in time, and specifically, just your hands and your own head, you just yourself and your mind, and see what you can do with that. And that to measure yourself at least once, meaning to just see what your actual potential is just at least once in life, so you kind of got like a mark for what you can do and what you're capable of, and what your mind's capable of. Because a lot of people don't get past their fears, and a lot of fears can, keep people from realizing what they can and can't do. And I've always been interested in that kind of stuff. When I was younger, I was very much a person who was all about trying to get a good job and not go out of my comfort zone at all. And then I started reading shit like this, and I was pretty stuck in life at that point. So I think being stuck at that point at kind of a dead end, and then being inspired by stuff like this, what I did was I bought a bus ticket to Helena, Montana after talking to this guy on a Blogspot forum. And he was looking for help on his, I don't know what the fuck you'd call it. It wasn't really a farm. It wasn't really a ranch. It was kind of, something that they were just starting out, 10 years down the road. It seemed like they just got there. Their moving truck was still there because they bought it with shit in it. But it turns out they were hoarders, and they were pretty, I wouldn't call them lazy, but they were pretty debilitated from, being overweight and injuries, and fucking catch-22. Their injuries led them to being overweight. It's for the guy. Injury led him to being overweight, and the overweight is exacerbating his injury, so he can't do much, and it's kind of compounding the injury even more as he gets bigger. And then his wife is just, I don't know, I think she's just, she's a very, very sweet woman, but I just don't think she likes to do much. It's very hard for them to get out of the house. They'll spend weeks inside, and sometimes way up in the mountains of Montana. That's all you want to do anyway. But this was the middle of the summer that I was there. So I basically was their little, kind of a slave boy. That's all right. I got some good experience out of that. I got to feel what it was like to sleep when there was the house was off the grid, and at night we didn't have electricity. So I got to feel what actual silence, or listen to what actual silence is, and it's hard because there's a sound to silence. Like there's no actual silence. Maybe in the dead of space where the waves can't exist, but there was just like this low hum about life, and it's almost deafening because it's your ears are just searching for something, and it's like amplified at that point. It was hard to sleep for a little while, but then I got used to it. But yeah. Measure yourself at least once. That is appealing. At this point, I've done a lot of measuring, and it's not getting any bigger. And I mean that in a way that, like I'm pretty content with how my life has gone so far. And so now I'm into the next chapter of domesticity and fatherhood, which I'm loving. So yeah, man, before you get into all that, people, especially in small towns, they get into relationships and fatherhood right out of high school and shit. And if it works for them or if it doesn't work for them, like, whatever, people can do what they want to do. But I really think it's awesome to get out there and try something that you're afraid of. I was afraid of traveling at first, for sure. And my dumbass idea was which I found out later was not what I wanted to do, but to just get to a place and then fucking throw my thumb up and try to get places. And you get there and you want a little bit of comfort. Because the comfort in the countries that I've been to is cheap, and you're like, shit, I just live it up. And then I go to a lot of hot places, so if you got all your shit on your back and clothes and stuff, you're standing out there in the sun with your fucking thumb out trying to get a ride. And you're like, I don't know where this is going to take me, and it might be a little dangerous. But really, I just like to get to one place, spend a few days there, know where I'm going next for the most part, find a place. That's the one thing I didn't do. I didn't really plan for the next place unless I knew it was going to be booked, or if it's a place that I kind of want to spend a little extra, get a little luxury. And those places I enjoyed. They're like in Palenque in Mexico. I was kind of in the jungle, and I looked this place up online. It was a bunk room situation. I wouldn't really call it a hostel, but it was a bunk room. It was basically a hostel. And it was pretty fucking sweet to find that place. And, there's not many options outside of that specific place. But one thing that sucked was the fucking monkeys in the middle of the night. They were so loud, and they were screaming. It sounded like little girls screaming. Call them the howler monkeys. Bringing back reactions. Oh, I don't know what I put there. But yeah, I've learned a little bit about, how to take things in life that happen to you. So I used to say that everything that happens to you is your fault. And people get kind of offended by that because, a lot of things that happen to people are definitely not their specific fault. They didn't bring it on themselves. And it sounds a little mean, a little like victim blaming. And it's not what I really mean. I just have trouble explaining myself. What I mean by that is everything that happens to you, it is your responsibility to choose how you react. So you can react to. I glanced at this story the other day. I don't know if it was real or if it was just a meme, but I'm sure it's happened before. These people became motivational speakers, and the people were a victim of rape and her rapist. And I was like, no, that can't be real. But they chose, a little. There was a fork in the road, and they took that bitch. or she did, or somebody. I don't know how. I'll read more into that, but that's tough. And another thing that's tough, even after having a kid, like I thought I was a little bit more enlightened in my thought, because I used to be pretty interested in the idea of forgiveness. And then you see these people that, like back in the day, I would read, woman forgives her son's murderer. And I was like, let me think about this. It'd take a lot of thought to understand how someone could forgive. And there's a little bit of a higher power that you have to bring in at that point. I don't know what I believe in higher power, but there's you got to reach outside yourself to get that kind of forgiveness. And after I became a parent, that just all went out the door, because I was like, if anyone did anything, my gun's coming out and somebody gonna die. I think the police would be on my side. They'd probably still put me in jail, let's be honest. But I would get some vigilante justice on those fucks. I also try not to think about that stuff very much, because it's poisonous. It is not good for your thoughts. If something happens, deal with it in the moment. Don't think about it. Don't think about it if it doesn't happen, because that's just bad. And it makes you a shitty, like, overprotective person. Like the fucking guys who, they want to keep anything from happening, like the really insecure guys in relationships. And I've been insecure sometimes. I definitely was a lot worse back in my early 20s and teens. I've realized a lot. I've come to learn a lot. But what was I saying about these over-possessive guys that want so much for nothing to happen, that they just possess, the person that they're with. Like, they own them. Like, they choose who they can and can't speak to. And, like, I think you just got to let shit happen. And if it doesn't work out, it wasn't meant to be, whatever that means. But that comes into, like, trust. So these are all my ideas, by the way. And I realize the camera's been off for a little while, so hold up. So yeah, these are my ideas from my life experiences in my podcast. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'll try to be a bit more articulate too. I'm not drunk. I just don't have a great voice for articulation. I think I have a pretty good voice. I'm trying to do voiceover stuff, and I could change my voice and make it sound really good for voiceover stuff. But when I'm just naturally talking, words, I miss letters. I know how they're spelled. I just, they're not all necessary. Oh man, what was I talking about? Yeah, they get a little possessive and try to control things, and shit happens, and then they come out with like, oh, I knew this was gonna happen and all that. And you can't think that way. You just gotta let shit happen and not say that, if I did this or if I did that, or if I was more possessive, this wouldn't have happened. Or, if something doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Don't try to control people. Just let them live. Let them live their lives, and you live yours. And if you get along, and if you can enjoy each other's time, that's great. Just don't be dependent on each other. I've learned that. Don't be dependent on someone else for your own happiness. That's a heavy burden for them. And, I mean, that could make them want to try to slip out or do something that you don't want them to do. Because that's a lot. It's a lot for somebody else to manage your emotions. And before you get into the fucking responsibility of a serious relationship, you need to be able to handle yourself before you can handle, a shared relationship. So, yeah, I mean, and that gets to my next thing about when the fuck did people start busting on people's mugs? Like, when did coming on the face get so popular? I haven't looked this up, so I'm sure someone probably has done a study. But, like, that's do women, I don't know if women enjoy that or if they just do it because it's, like, mainstream now, and porn definitely made it mainstream. But I want to know when that started to become like a real thing. Like, oh yeah, I don't know. We're weird people. Porn is where it all happens, man. Porn pushes everything. Like the whole going bald thing down there. That was definitely from porn. It just looks cooler, you know? And that brings me to like another thing. It's like, is it gay to look at another man's dick and just be like, dude, that's a nice one. Like, you got a nice hog on you. I personally don't think that's gay. I think it's just like, it's it's an object that's like, it doesn't have much in the way of discoloration, or, it's pretty good stature, and, it's just a good shape, and not all of us have that. So I think other, like, straight males can appreciate other guys' dicks without, being gay or on the spectrum. I don't know. Maybe it's gay. Yeah. So busting on mugs and nice dicks. So that's what this podcast is about. This is some hefty shit. Know what I'm talking about here. Like, yeah, love and possessiveness. That's what I talked about. There's a fine, or yeah, well, I don't know what I mean by that. I don't mean fine. I guess you could pose it as like a fine line. I always get that mixed up with like a bold line, which they're the complete opposite. But I always think like a fine line is like, it's a pretty strict line in the ground. You don't cross it. But a fine line is just a very thin line. You can see that on pens and stuff. They sell them by thickness. You go from fine to bold. So I think of it that way. And when you think of it that way, like love and possessiveness, there's a pretty strict line between the two. But I also think for a lot of people, it's a fine line, because they don't know that their possessiveness is prancing around and making them believe it's love, or vice versa, because love and possessiveness they're not the same thing, and it's really muddy to try to be possessive and say that you love somebody. Like, I was talking to my wife earlier. She's not my wife, by the way. She will be soon. And she tells me everything. She tells me about her past, and there used to be like a little bit of bubbling up of, whatever insecurity that would come up, and now it just doesn't do anything to me, besides like I would say that we're best friends. So just like your best friend would tell you about their past fuckcapades, like, she tells me the same stuff, and I'm like, I'll chuckle a little bit. It's funny. I'll be like, I'll just react the way a best friend would react, I suppose. We don't get deep into details. I don't think there's any need for that, but she tells me the basics, and I tell her the basics. I assume that she's the same way, because when I met her, she's pretty emotionally intelligent, and so when I talk about those things, I just assume that she's not insecure about them, because she knows that I would never do anything to make her not trust me. But I'm not in her head also. I'm sure she goes through some spectrum of emotions sometimes, and I don't always... She's very emotionally intelligent, so that's all I'll say. And, fuck. Yeah, so urine therapy. See, I'm trying to find a way to segue into this stuff, because I finished talking about something, and I feel like there's nothing else to say about it. Maybe something will come up later, but I just feel like at the moment there's nothing else to say about it. So there's not always a good segue, but urine therapy, I don't know how that could segue into anything anyway. This is something that, let me try to bring this up. Let's see. Urine therapy. Someone heard this. I heard this on a podcast, I believe, the other day. And I was just like, no, people aren't pissing on other people just for therapy. Like, there must be some ulterior motive to that. But it's been around for a while. It's alternative medicine. It's like that putting the coffee up your butt thing, the coffee enema. I don't know if that works. I guess I have to try it to see if it works. I'm definitely not going to piss on myself, though. And these people do, the application of human urine for medicinal or cosmetic purposes, including drinking of one's own urine and massaging one's own skin or gums with one's own urine. No scientific evidence exists to support any beneficial health claims of urine therapy. I can understand. No one's going to fucking do a study where, like, how do you bring that for a grant proposal? Like, we want to find out if piss has any therapeutic benefits. So I'm going to pee on people in the study, or I'm going to make people pee on themselves. I don't know how you would approach that problem of trying to find out if urine therapy is a thing. But urine consists of mostly water. It's 95% water. There's some urea in it. There's some chloride, sodium, potassium, and creatinine, and other dissolved ions, inorganic and organic compounds. I think those inorganic and organic compounds is what makes it fucking stink, because we eat some gross stuff these days. This just keeps saying there's no scientific evidence. Please don't pee on yourself. Unless you're one of those people. I mean, R. Kelly got in trouble for this kind of stuff, peeing on people. So I don't know if he was trying to pose it as like, oh, it's a folk remedy. I'm trying to pee on these people's gums to relieve their toothaches. Bitch, I don't even have a toothache. I don't know. Apparently, a lot of people still go to his shows and buy his shit. I don't know how you can be in the spotlight like that and still have like a good fan base. He's just singing to older black ladies, though, I believe. Apparently, peeing on stings, like a jellyfish sting, can actually be more harmful. It can activate nematocysts remaining at the site of the sting, making the pain worse. So, I mean, you can try it. The shitty thing about like your own anecdotal studies like that, let's say you get a jellyfish sting, right? And you're like, oh, I heard pissing on it works. Well, you don't really have a control group there. If you piss on it, it's already been pissed on. You can't say, I'm going to get another jellyfish sting on my other foot or whatever and see if the piss one feels worse or the non-piss one feels worse. I mean, not a lot of people are going to do that study on themselves. I'm just not going to piss on myself. And that's another thing. I don't piss myself ever, but I have pooped myself in my adult life. And we talked about that extensively on the last podcast. Oh, by the way, the last podcast, I apologize if anyone cares, that toward the end, both of us were getting we were feeling the sauce, as one would say. We were feeling it to the point where I could only give one-word answers. And by the end of it, right after we pressed stop, I packed up my laptop and like a few more things that I didn't want to leave down here, and I went up to my apartment. I told my wife I got too drunk, and that happens in here. I don't know what it is. I think it's just sitting down and constantly drinking. And I went upstairs and I took my clothes off, got into bed. Apparently I was laying across the bed. But I woke up at she apparently woke me up when she came to bed and tried to make me move. I ended up sleeping, putting my head at the foot of the bed. I woke up at 6 a.m. like that. I was like, I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what had happened. And she explained it to me. But it's crazy when you black out and you're still functional, like physically, there's just no memory being taken down. Your brain's just like, you don't want to remember this stuff. And it's crazy because you wake up in the morning surprised, you're like, where am I? And what did I do? And that just whole, like when you sleep hard during that shit. When I get drunk, like really drunk, and I go to bed and I wake up in the morning, when I wake up, I usually wake up early and energetic. It's weird. And then, an hour after that, I start to feel a little hungover, and I do the old eating ramen, taking a hot shower, drinking water thing. That seems to work. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have went to that crazy ass screen right there. But I'm not gonna do this for very long. I don't think it's gonna be great, so I just wanted to get something down for this weekend. Because maybe I'll put the other video up. I might cut out, like fade the end out a little bit. But I'll put it up as like a partial podcast, I guess. Because it was going pretty good. Ben and I, when we get to talk and if he's focused and I'm focused, we have some decent conversations. Just getting to the place where people aren't distracted, I guess. Wife's texting me. I don't know if other people do this, but I don't get into news that much. And it's because I think news, especially because we're so globally connected, that news is just news from anywhere but where you can actually go to and do things about. I think it's just, there's no reason for you to know it. I just don't think there's any reason for people to know what's going on unless they can do something about it. So I'm not saying that news shouldn't exist. I think it should be there. I just personally don't want to read stuff about things that I can't do anything about. All I can do is get enraged and poison myself, my own soul. So like, I'll read stuff about local happenings. And I read stuff about, where I'm going when I'm on the road. Sometimes. I don't even look at the weather, which is crazy. I'm a truck driver. My main fucking challenge, I drive through Montana, is the weather. And I don't look at what's going to happen because I just get there and deal with it. I think that's a good way to go. I've been like that for a while now. I just kind of deal with things as they happen. I try not to stress about something unless I need to. I think that's another thing that a lot of people do. They just have this chronic stress. They're always thinking about shit that's going to go wrong or shit they need to do when they're not doing those things or dealing with those things that are going wrong. They're just trying to mentally prepare, and I think that's stressful. When I need to know or do something, I'll do it when I need to. Like for me, procrastination in our culture is seen as something like inefficient or bad or lazy. And it can be in a lot of cases. But I use procrastination as a tool. It doesn't always work out as good as it sounds. But I really think that if you procrastinate, right, then you get down to this time crunch for a deadline. And in that time crunch, let's say you got a paper to write about, I don't know, I don't think that it matters. You got a paper to write for the next morning. You got to turn it in. So I think you can spend a chunk of time writing that paper, doing everything really focused because you're not distracted. You're going to not be distracted in that period of time. Get everything done all right before the deadline. So there's that crunch. And when you do it, let's say it's due in 2 weeks, you're gonna do it here and there. You're gonna have to use more time to figure out like where was I, what was I reading, where were my thoughts for this, and I'm gonna change this and that. But for a deadline, like if you're crunching at the end of that deadline, you're not gonna do all that. You're not gonna waste that extra time. You're just gonna use whatever time you actually need to do what you need to do. And I think procrastination can be a fucking great tool. There's some not studies, but there's some writings about that that people can use to justify it. Fuck, I say do it. Unless it's something like physics, to where like I posed this question to my wife the other day, and it didn't go well. I like to have these really wild conversations about ethereal, cerebral things. And what I was saying is, I was sitting on the couch. I was like, so I'm sitting on the couch right here. And then the next second, I was like, am I still in the same place? I haven't moved. And she said yes. And I was like, okay, yeah, I am, relative to where you are. But if someone was looking at us on Mars, they would see me sitting on the same couch, like hypothetically. No one's going to look into my apartment from Mars, I think. And we would be, relative to someone on Mars, I would be sitting on the same couch, but, thousands of miles in a different place in space altogether. And I like to think about that sort of shit. Like, just one thing that some people ask other people, it's kind of like at this point, it's something that people say. I don't know if this has anything to do with relativity, actually, because this comes from a man-made thing, like latitude and longitude. So when you're on the North Pole, if you're standing exactly on the North Pole, and this is hypothetical too, because this is man-made, you have to be exactly on the North Pole. But when you're standing on the North Pole, which direction can you go? Well, you can't go north, because you're already there, right? There's no more north to go. You can't go east or west. And the reason you can't go east or west is because relative to, hey, there's some relativity in that. Different relativity, but if you're on that point of 0 latitude and 0 longitude, the only way to go east or west or north is to go south first. And because if you tried to go east, right, well, you'd have to physically go south first. Like, the south would cancel out the east on that first step. And I wish I could explain this better. Maybe there's a diagram or something. But I've never been good at explaining shit, and I'm hoping this podcast will help me. So, and that, I think we started out by talking about colors. And this is something that's fucking crazy that I just found out about. That I don't even know how to prove it. But anyway, colors are manifested in your mind. So there's something specific about the color green that makes it really elusive. I don't know. Green's everywhere, but it's everywhere because we recept it as green. Recept. We receive it in our minds as green because that's what our eyes bring in. But like a dog doesn't have the same rods and fucking reels in their eyes that pick up the same colors. So dogs would see things, theoretically. I can't physically see out of a dog's eyes. I guess we can recreate it somehow, but that's still not the same thing. Dogs see things totally differently, different colors. There's some animals that only see in black and white, and so colors don't exist for them. There's some people who are colorblind that can't see specific colors, right? And is that it's like if they've never known a certain color, is that color, like that color seems relative or subjective. We all agree that, green is green, blue is blue, if we all have the same rods in our eyes. But it's so weird to think about that, like, if we didn't have those receptors for colors, if we weren't the interface for the world, if we weren't here, like, what would the world look like? Would there be colors? Or are colors just totally manifested in our own minds. I also like to stay away from the conversations of, I think Deepak Chopra talks about your mind manifests reality. Well, I guess you could argue that it does, because if you were dead, you probably couldn't have a reality, or if you were blacked out. So you can't really, if you're blacked out or dead, you can't really prove that the world still exists, right? But I'm going to say that it does. I put my faith... Science can be seen as a religion, I suppose. I choose to put my faith in people that do hopefully objective research on the world. And yeah, I know it's a leap, because I'm not going to do that research, and I'm not going to try to understand physics or quantum mechanics, because there's already people doing it. I'm going to trust what they say. I choose to trust what they say, because to me, just like certain things seem true to other people that objectively may not be true, well, I think that science is sort of the same way. It's just that science tends to work in a lot of objective applications. Like when you're doing math, it's pretty universal. Things work out the same way without you being involved, I guess. But yeah, I choose to put my faith in science. I'm not going to do the research myself. I'm just going to trust that there are certain people out there that can figure shit out, and hopefully someone out there, maybe like Neil deGrasse Tyson, can explain it in a way that someone like me can understand. And I do have a habit of being that guy who is trying to... I personally don't think I try to prove anybody wrong or try to shit on other people's beliefs, because I personally can't prove them wrong. I know that. But I ask questions that come out like accusations or me shitting on their beliefs. And I don't mean for them to come out that way, so I'm working on that. But if someone tells me that peeing on yourself will cure your cancer, well, I'm going to say, well, how did you get to that conclusion? Like, what did you look at studies? Is it anecdotal experience? Because I really don't trust a lot of anecdotal experience. It's too subjective. Is there any medical research on this, or is there any research at all if it's not peeing on yourself? Or, it's crazy. It's people, like, I guess this is along the same lines. There's such thing as poop transplants. It has to do with healthy bacteria getting, into your body. But, man, I'm talking shit about people who pee on themselves, but I'm not talking shit about people who take someone else's poop up their butt. So I guess I'm an asshole. Fuck. I don't mean to be. But I will say that I do think there are subjective truths. I do think that truth can be different from person to person, and I'm going to start thinking that way a little more. It sucks that when it comes down to like something that affects everybody, it's really hard to not shit on it or something, like the anti-vaxxing thing. Like, I shouldn't even get into that. I don't know much about it. I'm vaccinated and I'm alive, and pretty sure I won't get polio, so I appreciate that. But like, how can that be true? So hardcore, so fervently true for somebody. Like, one idea can be so true for somebody and be so false for somebody else. And if you're going into it saying that people can have their own truths, I don't mind it. Well, I think at a certain point, if they're that feverish about it, and they're trying to change world policy or something, and trying to make other people think different, and there's what it comes down to. That's the crux of it all, is everybody can live their own truths, right? Everybody can believe what they want at any time, and that's fine with me. But don't force me to believe in what you believe. And I have definitely been guilty of doing that to other people, and I'm gonna work on that. And just what it comes down to is realize that people are doing their own experiment in life. They're seeing life through their eyes. They don't have the same faith in science that I have, or the same experiences. We might have totally different experiences. We might have the same experiences and have different outcomes from it, you know? People can do the same exact thing and have totally different experiences from it. So I guess we got to be a little more humble when we try to shit on other people, unless they're really fucking nuts. Come on. Like that video of the chick in the supermarket. I don't know if I can play that, but it is hilarious. I'm gonna try to find this before I oh, here we go. No, that wasn't it. Definitely wasn't a Target. Shit, I'm sure this is a super popular video. People might have seen it. This guy was filming this woman talking shit to him. She was at the self-checkout behind him, and she was like, "I'm just trying to help you, motherfucker." Maybe I'll type in that. Motherfucker. And let me turn that camera back on. Howdy. There's no way I'm going to fix that. I don't want to spend money on a really nice capture device. I don't need all that shit. I do have to fix this, though. There we go. Oh, meets the boys in blue. There we go. Oh, fuck, I hope I can hear this.
You do, motherfucker. You do need my help, sir. Can't you see that, you son of a bitch?
Could you please just let me check out my groceries?
Fuck you, I'm trying to help you, motherfucker.
Well, that's not the way to help somebody.
Wow, this is...
You gotta ask Jesus Christ.
I don't have to
all
do
praise.
anything.
We're all sinners.
Okay.
He's not gonna force you to do it.
You're sinning right now.
No, I'm not, motherfucker. You fucking accuser. Get the fuck out of here, you fucking accuser.
Oh, shit,
you motherfucking accuser. Get the fuck out of here.
Wow.
You motherfucking accuser.
Turn that down a little bit.
Accuser of the fucking brethren, you motherfucker.
She went a little gangster there.
I'm pissed because he won't repent.
I'm pissed because you won't repent.
I just want to get some groceries and go home.
Hey, man. I understand. These people are so professional, too. I don't think I'd be able to be professional.
I don't give a fuck.
I don't... Yeah. I know they probably can't touch her, but I feel like I'd be like, you know what? This job sucks. I'm going to lose my job over this. I'll take this bitch out.
Holy fucking terror of fucking fire and brimstone. Do you fucking get it? Yeah, totally understand.
I totally understand.
I mean, it's It's not the way to do it.
It's not the way to help people for sure.
Answer my fucking question. Fuck you, don't call me ma'am. Who the fuck told you what my title
Yeah, ma'am is pretty gross. That's the shitty thing about retail is you feel like you have to call people ma'am and sir, and it gets to a point where you're like, what am I doing? It sounds ridiculous. Hey, motherfucker. You don't have to apologize for him, man. To him. I guess for his experience, but just be real. Just be like, yo, this bitch is crazy. Yo, by the way, so she is calling the police right now at 2 minutes in. By the end of this video, the police are already there. That is good response. That shit doesn't happen all the time. All right, come on now. This gentleman here looks like he can take her out, but he's kind of holding back. It's probably taking a lot of holding back for him to do that. What store is that? Fred Meyer's or something? I love how she gets gangster with that motherfucker.
Shut the fuck up! You all better repent! Because the kingdom of heaven is at hand!
Amen, sucker.
Fuck up, bitch!
This is a bad representation of Jesus Christ.
If you don't have Jesus Christ in your heart, I feel fucking sorry for you.
Imagine if this was Jesus, if this is how he went throughout the gospel. You ain't, if I ain't in your heart, you gonna die and rot in hell, you piece of shit. Maybe that's how he got people to join him. Never know. If this video goes up, it's probably gonna be demonetized. I'm sure someone owns this.
Fuck you! I never brush my fucking teeth! Don't you fucking know that?
How'd you know she doesn't? You don't brush your teeth.
Fuck you!
And I hate that too, man. Just brush your teeth. I get pretty serious about oral health. So she's kind of a bitch for not brushing her teeth. You know what's great about these situations is all the non-crazy people kind of get along a little more. Like, 'cause they're all in this weird situation. They're like, yo.
Fucking parole! And I'll be better off than any one of you!
Oh, yeah. She's hitting Super Saiyan, bruh.
Shut the fuck up!
Oh, it's beautiful.
You, sir!
And she hit him back with the sir.
Fuck! Are you that fucking dumb?
There we go. There's the boys in blue. That was a quick response. Now, if this was Spokane, it would be a longer video. And see, everybody comes together at the end, claps to get the evil out. Or maybe, you know, she's the good and everybody else is evil. See, and this bro comes up right here and he's like, oh man, I'm sorry I'm in your way.
Dude, you're good, man.
And see, people get along in these situations. I'm going to close this shit out. People, they get along in these situations a little better. I don't know what that is, but it's nice to see. So I guess we just got to have a few more crazy bitches out in the world to bring us all together. And that's where this is going to end. And next time we'll try another one with Ben. There's some stipulations to that though. Like, I don't really have much of a phone problem, but I'm going to leave my phone inside. He's going to leave his phone inside. We're not going to drink. I don't have a problem with drinking, but maybe I'll just drink wine again. That seems to be all right. I'm not going to end up on the floor later. And hopefully we won't have any technical difficulties next time, because that shit's annoying. And I don't understand them half the time. So, peace out. We'll see y'all next weekend.